Quincy Jones!
This is where the movie gets its mojo, baby. Groovy.
I feel like the most blessed person on the planet, starting with Ray Charles at 14, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, all the way to 50 Cent.
Quincy Jones is a wonderful personality. He's an incredible producer, and we have made history together.
I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair and send him on his way.
We were rehearsing, and the shampoo gets in my eye. I said, I got so there was a little store, and in the window was a little tiny bottle of Johnson & Johnson baby shampoo. So we sent a driver back. We did it in one take.
We came up with this nonsense word, super something, super crazy, super supercalifragilistic, aha.
If you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Our daughters will adore us, and they'll sing in grateful chorus. Well done, Sister Suffragette. Losing my timing this late in my career.
I've had great joy and great distress.
Where are the clowns?
How can you sum that up? I'm still waiting. I'll probably try to let you know in another year.
Well, maybe next year.
Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler?
What's your name, lad? Well, you should know by now. You've been a friend of my mum since before I was born.
These are people I'd been watching on big screen, small screen, in the theatre, and suddenly I was working with them. Terrifying.
I've forgotten the number.
You stupid boy.
Whistle while you work. Hitler is at work. He's half army, so's his army. Whistle while you...
Your name will also go on the list. What is it? Don't tell him, Pike. Pike.
My folks were always putting him down, down. They said he came from the wrong side of town. What you mean when you say that he came from the wrong side of town?
January 2005, the first time we met the hugely popular cooking double act.
We bought this at the market today. Everything here is just done so nicely and with such a little bit of love. And you know, you go down the market, you buy your bits and bops, and you just feel jolly for the rest of the day.
I was ecstatic with my performance on Saturday night when I walked off that dance floor to what I believe was one of the biggest standing ovations in Strictly history.
Taking part in Strictly is the best job in the world. There are two things that I love to do, and they are perform and to teach. And I think this is the only job in the world where I actually get to do both of the things I love at the same time.
Great Britain has won with 164 points. There they are, the triumphant view of brotherhood of man.
Kisses for me, say hello, kisses for me. Bye-bye, baby, bye-bye. Don't cry, honey, don't cry.
Walk out the door, but I'll soon be back for more.
He's out! England have won! Underwood has taken 7 wickets.
There's one thing I must say before I...
Oh, bowling! He's done it! The hat-trick to Proctor. 4 in 5 balls.
I'll be thinking of you.
All right, he's done it. Took Graham Thorpe to a century in his debut test.
Radio 1.
Steve Wright in the afternoon.
All right, now, just after 2 o'clock now, today have we got a lot of stuff for you.
I just wanted to
not be a talking about the music guy. I wanted to talk about things.
Steve, right inside your radio set.
We will tell you about a marriage where the groom is 103 years old. Without sounding too pretentious, relating to people. And I think really that's the role of popular radio and popular television. Now on top of the pops, here's Black Lace and Aga Do 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 Do.
We get everybody up involved in it, doing silly dances. Various things like that, and just basically enjoying themselves.
What's your favourite song of theirs?
Aga Do Do Do.
It's just pure simple fun, gut clean fun.
10 tons of truck pulled along 35 metres of track. Britain's Jeff Cook proudly wins the title, the world's strongest man.
Fantastic. I'm going to buy all the other competitors a beer tonight. I might even buy you one.
Shot putting may dominate his life, but not to the point of monopolising it. Capes has been breeding budgies for the last 6 years.
You don't have to make the difference, mate.
The strength of Tarzan, no man can say. Deep in the jungle, Tarzan continues to enforce his law. Tarzan's awesome warning cry is known to every living creature in the jungle.
I'm Hutch. He's Tarzan.
Tired of drifting and searching, shifting.
I say my profession is acting. I can't very well say that I'm a singer yet, or I'm an artist.
Come on, silver lady, take my word. I won't run.
I've sold a lot of records, but that doesn't mean the same thing.
That was bloody brilliant.
Oh, thank you for that assessment, Mr. Weasley. Perhaps it would be more useful if I were to transfigure Mr. Potter and yourself into a pocket watch. That way one of you might be on time.
Put the phone in your drive? That never occurred to me.
I would like Maud to see your father as the son she never had.
Will she be the mother I never had?
Sarcasm is the lowest form of wit.
The time has come for me to give myself tapeworm.
I hope it's not something I'm going to regret. Here we go.
And 6 weeks later...
That is it. That is the tapeworm. You can see it. Oh, God, that is horrible.
At the table, Ray Redden, who won the title in 1959.
Ray spent the summers on the holiday camp circuit, entertaining the crowds with his repertoire of trick shots.
And there it goes.
The game became hugely popular on television, and he was its biggest star.
There's just no stopping Terry Griffiths.
The new world snooker champion, too. 66-1 outsider Terry Griffiths won at his first attempt.
Well done, champ.
You'll be here to have a crack at him next time, won't you?
Isn't he got a loan of it?
I bought my guitar, and I had this vibrato which I could go. So I could use to great effect, and
Arsenal into the semi-final of the FA Cup.
That's it, that's it. Well, Ronnie Yeats was one of the cornerstones. His coming, along with Ian St John, was the very beginning of Liverpool's rise.
Thomas arriving, Bowles! Oh, beauty! Stan Bowles!
Here's Bowles! Yes! Oh, that's the record!
Hello. Sven-Göran Eriksson has agreed to become the new England coach.
Good luck, Sven. Thank you.
Oh, this is getting better and better and better!
You don't beat Germany away 5-1.
To the World Cup
emotional journey. Thank you for allowing us to be part of it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
You know, it's a really good sign that you want a memento of our double date from hell.
You get a good night's sleep.
I will. Night, Mom.
Night, honey.
Under strengths, you've just put accounts.
Yeah.
That's your job, though. That's just. No, Keith. I was sort of looking for your skills within your job. So, is there anything else you could have put there? No. Okay. Under weaknesses, you've put eczema.
You got a $20 bill, get your hands up. You got a $10 bill, get your hands up. Single ladies, I can't hear y'all.
People don't have to respect my music. When I made that music, I made it in a basement in New York City. And for people to respect that here in Britain is a big thing for me.
Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Maybe I didn't kiss you quite as good as I should have. But if I made you feel second best, gee, I'm sorry I was blind. 'Cause you were always on my mind. Ooh, you were always on my mind.
Come up and see me, make me smile. I'll do what you want, right in a while.
Gives a job. Go on. Gives it. Go ahead. A job? Yeah, gives it. Go on. I know you've got one. Arthur told me. Go on, gives it.
So it's tricky. I couldn't come down overnight. We'd finished filming and I'd have to keep him pretty close to the surface because I didn't want to go through the journey the next day.
I'm Dr. Jekyll, actually. This is my friend, Mr. Hyde.
Everybody was telling me, don't do it, the end of it, and it'll ruin you. We did it in 5 weeks, and it was wonderful. I mean, there were people who'd come up on the street and say, Donald, and kiss me, and I'd say, I don't know you.
You fought very hard in the games, Miss Everdeen. But they were games. Would you like to be in a real war?
No.
Good. Neither would I.
Hey, this is really wonderful work. Where'd you get this, Mayo?
Subic Base, Philippines, sir.
Ah, thought I recognized the work. Be proud of them wings. They're the only ones you're gonna leave here with. Mayonnaise.
This is Radio 1's #1 Lady Anne Nightingale. Hi.
When Radio 1 launched, there were no women presenters.
Eventually, I think they thought, we'll have to have one. Who do we know? And Star became the token woman.
Hello, welcome to Is It Test. Ladies and gentlemen, the Dad!
For some reason for me, I've gone on that interest in the new music, the undiscovered, the underground, nurturing it really.
Finest export.
There's no doubt this man, our leader, put his head on the block by saying, basically, I fervently believe, because that's what he believes, of a relationship and a strong one with the trade unions and the Labour Party.
A formidable political figure who guided a party that for decades was on the fringes of politics to the heart of power, changing the political landscape of the United Kingdom and delivering a referendum on independence.
For Scotland, the campaign continues, and the dream shall never die.
Gallo, the outside left, and straight through the goalkeeper's legs for goal number 4.
Side to Beckenbauer. Zayla, and this is a good one.
Beckenbauer and his style of play, perhaps one of the phenomenons of the 70s.
This is Aitken, Cruyff, number 14. Ball was deflected, Aitken.
Good save, and then in again, it's that man again. Schillaci has done it once more.
Luke, you do not yet realize your importance.
I love being a part of that whole cult, especially when their kids want their posters signed. You can't say no to that.
If you only knew the power of the Docs.
He wanted to use Orson Welles, but he thought Orson might be too recognizable. So he picks a guy who was born in Mississippi and raised in Michigan who stutters.
I am your father.
I still don't really know why he left, to be honest. But it wasn't a good feeling to be left to continue to fulfill contractual engagements and all that.
Remember me, though I have to travel far. Remember me, each time you hear a sad guitar. Know that I'm with you, the only way that I can be, until you're in my arms again. Remember me.
My papa used to sing me that song.
Does this look like a circus to you, man?
I'm November Prime.
The Empire is gone, Mando. All that are left are mercenaries and warlords. But if it bothers you, just go back to the core and report them to the New Republic.
Which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
David Wilkie is absolutely superb. Look at it go. And Great Britain is going to win its first gold medal in swimming since 1960. And it's Wilkie. And it's a new world record for Great Britain and David Wilkie. What a swim.
He's going to win the London Marathon. The second fastest time ever in the history of world marathon running. What a performance from him. We've never seen anything like this on the streets of London.
I realized the scene I did terrified everybody. And the one comment I get from everybody is, you know, you kept me out of the water.
just want to go back to my room.
Why?
Well, I'm very confused. My stamina has increased so much since The Shining because the role required me to cry all day long, every day, and it was so difficult being hysterical for that length of time.
Wendy!
Yes.
For thou hast wrought a deed of slander with thy fatal hand. Upon my head and all this famous land.
From your own mouth, my lord, did I this deed.
They love not poison that do poison need, nor do I thee. Though I did wish him dead, I hate the murderer, love him murdered.
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free.
You're finished. You're finished.
There's so many ways that I got away with murder, just rolling cars, having accidents on motorcycles, just playing full tilt.
And it's bad to be alone. Help me make it through the night.
Не надо, нельзя сдаваться. Если это произошло, это означает, что мы необыкновенно сильны в этот момент, раз они решили меня убить. Все, что нужно для торжества зла, это бездействие добрых людей. Поэтому бездействовать не надо.
In the orphanage, they ranked us by favorites. Number 1 was the favorite child, number 27 was the least favorite child, and because of my vitiligo, I was number 27. And so that meant I got the smallest portion of food and the last choice of clothes.
Nobody's home.
Derek's brain and body have been so impacted by COVID that he has difficulty speaking, he can't move without help.
We're front then.
The greatest father in the world. Happy birthday. Love you so much. And it's so proud of you. How you gonna go?
That's from Darcy.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, and let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars.
Dear 10-year-old Liam, get ready, it's about to get a little bumpy. Not only will you audition for one of the biggest music shows in the world, but you'll also meet the future mother of your child. I know, it seems early, but just trust me, it's all going to work out however it's supposed to.
You're insecure, don't know what for. You're turning heads when you walk through the door. Don't need makeup to cover up. Being the way that you are is enough.
My heart goes out to Liam's family and, of course, to his little boy. And I just feel so incredibly sad about all of this. Liam, we had so much fun.
She told me in the morning she don't feel the same about us in her bones. Seems to me that when I die, these words will be written on my stone. The story of my life.
John West has beaten one man. He's going to get there. Williams. This is what John Williams' play is about.
Taken there by Barry John. Barry John, can he make it? Oh, what a try!
He's got support inside.
Rob Barrow, an 8th title for Leeds.
As the smallest player in a Giants game, he was world class. Shortly after retirement, Rob discovered he had motor neurone disease.
I'm not giving in out till my last breath. I have too many reasons to live.
Mr. Robert Burrow, for services to rugby and to motor neuron disease awareness.
Your Royal Highness told me to keep fighting your best fight.